be taken, imprisoned, or in any other way destroyed, except by lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. To no one shall we lose, shall no one, shall we deny, shall no one, will we delay right or justice. Long live the king.
Thank you, King John. Welcome, everyone, to Law Day 2015. We've got a wonderful program ahead for you. If you'd please rise for the presentation of the colors.
Detail, halt. Left, hey. Mr. President, the color guard awaits your command. Present, arm.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard, you may post the colors.
Color bearers, prepare to post. Post. Musket bearer, port, arm. Right, hey. Forward, arm. Detail, halt. All up.
Thank you to the Sons of the American Revolution, I believe Saramana chapter. We really appreciate that. Law Day is a day that was initiated to celebrate the rule of law in our country. It was started by President Eisenhower in the 50s, and it's continued on, and it began as a project of the American Bar Association. And it helps us remember each year how important the rule of law is, and the fundamental basis for that in the United States is our Constitution. And today is a special day or a special year because on June 15th, the Magna Carta will be 800 years old. So that's a remarkable achievement, and it's amazing to think how much it's evolved and how it still remains a vital part of our history. And the Constitution in the U.S. continues to change. So it's a good time to stop and think about the legal system and what we do as attorneys and how important our justice system is. I'd like to thank our sponsor, BMO Harris Bank. Jennifer Zavadil is here today. Jennifer, would you like to come up? This is their 6th year of sponsoring Law Day, and Jennifer's been here for all 6 years. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Well, for most of you, hopefully most of you know who I am, But for those of you that don't, I'm Jennifer Zavadil. I'm Vice President Branch Manager of BMO Harris Bank at the Cortez office. As I was preparing for today's luncheon, I went back and I looked at some of the notes from the previous meetings that we've had. And I've shared with you before a little bit about the bank statistics, about all the changes that we've gone through as being part of BMO. But today I kind of wanted to share with you a few thoughts on what it means at BMO to be the bank that defines a great customer experience. For some of you late nighters, you know that tonight is the last night of David Letterman and End of an Era. And one of the things that he does on his show that everybody really likes is his top 10. So I decided to put together at BMO what sets us apart from our peers and the standard that we hold ourselves to every day. And my staff and I came up with our top 10. To be a trusted advisor, to deliver value to our clients, work with integrity and do what's right, take responsibility and make tomorrow better, show empathy and put others first, be an expert in what we do, diversity, learn from difference, be persistent, keep our promises, and contribute to the well-being in the communities where we do business. And I think in your profession, you can agree with me that those are some of the same things that you do every day with your clients. And on that note, I'd just like to take a few minutes and introduce a few experts that I have with me here today. I have Elisa Westbury, who is with our Premier Banking team. Lisa, stand up. They can't see you over there. This is Lisa. She's been here several years have been here. I have Nancy C., who is our financial advisor. And then luckily this year I was able to bring a new partner that I'm working with and had some great success with Jody Allen in business banking. So I hope that you will take some time and maybe give us some consideration here. We'll be reaching out to you in the next several weeks. And it really is our hope that you'll give us an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you and your business. And I hope that you will use us and consider us as a resource for you and for your clients. And thank you once again for letting us be here today.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have some distinguished guests with us today that I would like to introduce. We have Representative Jim Boyd. Thank you for being here today. We have the chair of our County Board of County Commissioners, Betsy Benek. Thank you. We have our City of Palmetto Mayor, Shirley Groover Bryant. We also have the Chancellor from the USF Sarasota Manatee campus, Dr. Sandra Stone. We have our Public Defender, Larry Eager. And we also have the President of the Sarasota County Bar Association, Doug Cherry. And I'd like to recognize the judges that are here in attendance today. We have Judge Brownell, Judge Moreland, Judge Malucci, and Judge Smith, who has been the leader of our Law Day Committee, Judge Dunnigan, and Judge Gallen. I have a few more announcements, but I believe first we have a special guest. Alex, nice to see you. If you want to come up.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, President Gothi. Welcome to Magna Carta Jeopardy. I'm Alex Trebek and your host this afternoon. I have as my helpers Judge Malucci and Paul Grandal. They're going to be the moderators and the ones that are identifying who are the respondents with questions, with the right questions. As you know, with Jeopardy, I will give you the answer and you're to respond with a question after the answer is read. So, with that said, I know many of you are students of the law. We're here to test that knowledge regarding that great document that was sealed over 800 years ago. Are we ready? Let's begin. The billionaire owner of the only privately held copy of the 1297 Magna Carta purchased it in 2007 from another billionaire. Partially correct. Any other answers?
Maybe you should read it again.
I'll read it again. The billionaire owner of the only privately held copy of the 1297 Magna Carta purchased it in 2007 from this other billionaire owner.
We have James. James up in here.
I apologize, that's incorrect. The correct answer is David Rubenstein from Ross Perot. All right, next question. The purchase price for Rubenstein's Magna Carta created a world record. Any respondents? It was $21.3 million. This was the most money paid for a one-page document at the time. All right, third question. This is the original language of the Magna Carta.
What is English?
Incorrect.
What is Latin?
Correct. What is Latin is correct. Latin was the original language of the Magna Carta. You're the first prize winner today. The number of 1215 Magna Carta in existence. Who is that? What is 3 is incorrect. Yes, sir. What is 4 is correct. Absolutely. You're a winner today. That gentleman. There are 4 original Magna Carta still in existence today. Next question. The 4 original 1215 Magna Carta are held by these 3 British institutions. I see no responses. 2 belong to... Oh.
I know where one is. I saw it.
Lori Dorman, you have a question for us?
What is the Salisbury Cathedral?
That's partially correct. Anyone with all 4 locations? 2 belong to the British Library, and one is at the Cathedral of Salisbury, and one is at the Lincoln Cathedral. All right, next question. This volunteer legal organization erected a monument to the Magna Carta at Runnymede, England. Yes. In the form of a question, please. What is the American Bar Association? That's correct. You are our next winner. Thank you. And this will end Jeopardy. We'll be back for Double Jeopardy.
Right, thank you, Alex. Next, I would ask if Judge Moreland would come forward. It's appropriate that today we will present the 2015 Jim Slater Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I always wish on days like this I was this great orator like Martin Luther King, but unfortunately I'm not. I will do the best I can. Today before this honorable collection of individuals, I have the privilege of presenting the award that is the only award given by the consensus of the judges of the 12th Judicial Circuit to the person who embodies professionalism in the practice of criminal law. To have you appreciate just how important this honor is, I'm going to tell you some of the people who have been the previous recipients. They include Brian Eiton, Rebecca Wilson, Peter Belmont, Carol Schlemmer, Leanne McCurry, Bruce Lee, Adam Tabruz, Jim Dearman, and Elliot Metcalf. Part of my thrill of giving this award and being kind of happy that Judge Dubinsky is not here, because otherwise he would be giving the award, is the fact that I had the honor of working both with the namesake, Jim Slater, as well as knowing the recipient. And I can tell you that the reason this award is so well named is Jim Slater was the person in the 12th Judicial Circuit who for a number of years was charged with the awesome responsibility of representing all the indigent persons charged with capital cases. He did that in an atmosphere where he also had to run the entire Bradenton Public Defender's Office. And so if the job of just representing the capitally charged indigents was not enough, it was corralling what is often a ragamuffin group of attorneys that the last thing you want to do is have to control. Mr. Eager, you know that's true. So Jim Slater did that seamlessly, and he did it with such professionalism that we all in the criminal realm appreciated that. And I like to say that professionalism is the person in a legal sense who demonstrates not only the ability to dedicate his skills to representing the unpopular, but has also done so with the ability not to ever violate their ethical obligation or give up what they have chosen to pursue as an honorable profession of representing those that are less fortunate than us, that are also unpopular. So with this year's recipient, I think he embodies all those traits of professionalism. He is not only practices civilly, he has integrity, he on a daily basis shows legal ethics, he has a commitment to the rule of law, and if you go to his webpage, you'll see why he believes in that what he does is for the public good. I can say this about the recipient because I've had the ability of trying cases or being in the courtroom when he was trying cases, not only as an attorney, but also as a judge when he's come before me. And lastly, I will throw this personal in. He's tried cases alongside my husband and not killed him, which I appreciate how difficult that can be on occasion. I appreciate the fact that he allows him to come home to me. He also, I think, embodies something that a lot of attorneys need to learn. Practicing law is not who he is, it's just what he does so seamlessly and so well. What he also is a great father to his daughter. He is a great husband. He gives to his community and volunteers. He coaches his daughter's soccer team, and he balances his legal life with his personal life in a manner which we all enjoy watching. One of the things I think that is the literal personification of how he is able to balance his life is he also is an acclaimed and international surfing star. And I think that just the idea that you have to balance on a surfboard shows how well you can balance your life. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to give the Jim Slater Award of 2015 to Brett McIntosh.
Well, thank you for those very kind words, Judge Moreland. I really appreciate that. The criminal courts are the trauma center of individual liberties, constitutional protections, and due process. The work that all of us do there, that are involved in the courts on a daily, day in and day out basis, from the clerks, the bailiffs, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, court reporters, everybody, the decisions that are made and the manner in which we conduct ourselves is important and it's noble. And so it's important that we all try to keep those things in mind as we go in and out day after day. And sometimes the heated battles that come up, the disagreements and all of those things, the tempers that flare, that we try to temper it with the memory of that responsibility that we bear to this higher calling that we all have. When I was a young lawyer, I knew Jim Slater and I knew him as a gentleman, and I knew him as a warrior for his clients. I also know, I'm sure, all of the past recipients of this award. Adam, Rebecca, and many others that aren't here, people that I respect tremendously. So receiving this award today from the judges of this circuit is truly a very high water moment in my career. So I am honored and I am very much humbled, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge Moreland, and congratulations, Brett. Very well-deserved honor. Next, I'd like to call Steele Williams for the nominating committee report.
Thank you, Jeff. I would take off the mustache, but I don't think it'll go back on if I do. The nominating committee of the association is to meet once a year to assess the qualifications of all the candidates for officers and directors in the association. This year's nominating committee consisted of myself, the past president, Jeff Gothi, and the president-elect, Rob Eschenfelder. And pursuant to the bylaws of our association, we are to make a report at this May meeting what the new, or the slate of officers and directors will be for the up-and-coming year. I would ask that the officers and directors stand once you're recognized in the report. First, the officers, the president, former president-elect, will be the president, Rob Eschenfelder. Rob, are you here today? He must not. The president-elect is Andrea Johnson. The secretary is Paul Grandal. The treasurer is Alexandra St. Paul. There are 3 directors whose terms will expire on June 2017. 2-year terms. The first is Marissa Powers, Rebecca Proctor, and Charles Telfair. I don't believe Charles is here today. Okay. There are 3 directors with 1 year remaining on their 2-year term expiring next year at this time in June of 2016. They are Ann Douglas, Lori Dorman, and Jennifer Fowler Hermes. Now the Young Lawyers Division president is also a member of the bar, the board of the Bar Association. That's Sierra Pino. Sierra here today? And the immediate past president will be Jeff Gothi, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Gothi. Thank you.
And we will vote on our directors at the next meeting in June. And I just want to thank the folks who did contact us and offer to serve on the board. It's definitely a call to service, and our board works very hard. This year we had more people offer to serve than we had slots open. So those of you who were not nominated, thank you for your willingness to serve, and please stay involved because we'll certainly consider you again next year. And it's a great thing to do. I know many of you have served, and if you haven't served on the board, please think about it next year. I'd like to call on Lori Dorman now to announce the 17th Annual Community Service Award.
For the past 17 years, the Manatee County Bar Association has recognized the community service that we do for others. And we have 2 categories, Community Service Leader and a Lifetime Community Service Award. This year we are inviting our bar to again nominate members who need the recognition for all the wonderful things they do. We have a number of past recipients here. I think I saw Doug Peebles. Doug is a past recipient, as is Judge Smith. And this year, we are wanting to let the community know all of the things that you do outside of the practice of law that help the charities and organizations in our community. If you would, on your table there are blue slips. Please complete those and turn them into Sue and nominate the people that you know who have done wonderful things for our community. We'll be recognizing these people at our June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lori's a good example of our hardworking board members. She's a past president, and I believe, Lori, didn't you initiate the Community Service Awards during your presidency? So thank you for that, working on that once again. Next, we have a report from the Young Lawyers Division. Bryony Swift, if you'd come up, and thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryony Swift from Porges, Hamlin, Knowles, and Hawk. I'm here for the Young Lawyers Division to invite you to an art unveiling. The Young Lawyers have put together an exhibit of Manatee County school student art. It is on display on the 5th floor of the Judicial Center, and it will be officially unveiled to the community on June 2nd at 5:30 p.m. If you're interested in attending, I have flyers, and you can RSVP to Porges, Hamlin, Knowles, and Hawk. Excited to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brownie. Next, we have a report from Jennifer Fowler Hermes on the Civics Education Project.
Hi, everyone. I won't take much of your time, but just to report, next week, many of our members of the Manatee Bar Association will be headed back to 7th grade, very scary, and have volunteered their time to go into civics classes and talk about law and civics together. And I appreciate all of those who have stepped forward to help out and those who have offered to serve as lead attorneys. Most of the classes are taken care of. There may be one or two where we still need a volunteer. If last minute you decide you want to throw your name in, let Sue know, and she will put you in contact with the lead for the school that still needs a couple more attorneys. Again, thank you very much, and this will be exciting. It's the second year, and it's the demand from the schools has been much high. They know about us now, and they know we're coming, and they're excited and being very helpful. And again, thanks everyone who was participating.
I'd like to let everybody know about the historic courtroom dedication at our historic courthouse. It will be Wednesday, July 15th at 11 o'clock. So I'd like to see a lot of you out there. It's a nice project. Our clerk has worked very hard to make that happen, and it's nice to see that come to completion. Now we have round 2 of Jeopardy. Mr. Trebek, if you'd come back.
Welcome to the second half of Jeopardy this afternoon. Are we ready? Ready. This town, already famous for an innovative culinary creation, recently discovered their own rare version of the Magna Carta in a scrapbook in the County Council archives. Time. A rare 1300 version of the Magna Carta was found in the town of Sandwich, Kent. Next question. Next answer. The Magna Carta laid a foundation for these enduring legal concepts.
What is the Bill of Rights?
Can you be more specific with that, Mr. Chabruge?
What are habeas corpus, due process, and
That is correct. The Magna Carta laid foundations for the ban on cruel and unusual punishment, trial by a jury of one's peers, the right to a fair trial, not necessarily undelayed, the notion that no one is above the law, including the king, and limits on taxation without representation. The total number of Magna Carta that are known to exist. The total number that have been written ever. That's 24. All right. Next answer. This not so innocent Pope annulled the first Magna Carta.
Who's Innocent the Second?
Yes?
Pope Innocent III. Who is? Who is Pope Innocent III?
Correct. Who is Pope Innocent III? Next answer. In 1297, in exchange for a new tax, this English king reissued the Magna Carta of 1225. Famous English king. That would be King Edward I. Next answer. The original Magna Carta was created using these animal products. What is sheepskin? Quills and vellum parchment. Sheepskin, correct. That will end this afternoon of Jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Next, I'd like to have Andrea Johnson come up. We have a special guest from Stetson Law School, and Andrea will handle the introduction.
As an alum of Stetson University College of Law, I do consider it a privilege to be able to introduce to you our keynote speaker this afternoon. But I must confess that in putting my remarks together, I was finding it difficult because our speaker's resume is 12 pages long. So I'm certainly not going to do his career justice, but I hope that you can see a glimpse of what he has contributed to the legal profession. He started his undergrad years at the University of Rochester, where he graduated summa cum laude with degrees in both American history and political science. He attended Columbia University School of Law, where for 2 years he was a Harlan Fiske Stone Scholar. In private practice, he spent nearly a decade as a civil trial attorney at the law firm of Ropes and Gray in Boston, Massachusetts. He concentrated his practice on complex insurance coverage cases, securities class action defense, large tort actions, and general commercial litigation. Currently, he is the Associate Dean for Academics, a professor of law, and the director of Veterans Law Institute at Stetson University College of Law. He co-coaches their moot court team and also oversees their internship programs, which they currently have programs at the Florida Supreme Court, 2nd District Court of Appeal, the U.S. Middle District, as well as the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Our speaker has received the University Level Award for Excellence in Teaching, the Award for Excellence in Professionalism and Career Development, twice has been named as the best all-time professor, 5 times has been awarded the Golden Apple Achievement Award for teaching. He has also received the University Level Award for Excellence in Scholarship and is the Dickerson Brown Award recipient for Excellence in Faculty Scholarship. He has spoken to the Manatee Bar in the past, so I am very pleased that he is here to speak with us again this afternoon. So why don't you join me in welcoming Dean Michael Allen.
Well, thank you, everyone. I am really longing for the day that the introduction that one gets is, we found him wandering on the streets and let's see what he can do. But no, seriously, I appreciate that, Andrea, and thank you, Judge Smith, for the invitation. I always enjoy coming down here to Manatee County to speak at this event. And I think that Law Day is such an important thing. I mean, it was introduced in connection with the sort of Red Scare in the 1950s. But today, I think it's really important because it lets us step back and think about the importance of the rule of law. So, because you play Jeopardy, I have nothing else left to say because I've taken all the material. So thank you for the invitation. No, in all seriousness, the Magna Carta is clearly an important document. As recently as 2013, for example, in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, there was a bill proposed that would have provided as follows, that for anybody proposing a bill to be passed as a law in New Hampshire, the representative would have to, that addressed individual rights or liberties, the representative had to, quote, shall include a direct quote from the Magna Carta which sets forth the article from which the individual right or liberty was derived. So it clearly has this centerpiece. You can see it in terms of the program for today. But at the risk of being run out of town, I want to suggest that the Magna Carta is far less important for what it was and far more important for what people have made it become. And that is the importance of myth and perception, right? So as an associate dean now, nobody ever comes into my office and says, hey, Dean Allen, everything's fine, just wanted to say hello, right? It's always a problem. And for a long time, the chancellor is the one in the room who is really laughing. Nothing good follows chancellor, right? And for a long time, people would say to me these things that I knew were not true. And I would get myself all wrapped up in it, and then I realized I live now in a world of perception, not reality. The Magna Carta is like that, and we can see the power of myth. But I want to preview where I'm going to end today, which is myth can be dangerous too, because we do exactly the same thing with our Constitution as we do with Magna Carta. But right now we're in a very dangerous place, I think, in terms of not recognizing myth from reality. So let's go back, 800 years ago on the little meadow near the Thames River in the place called Runnymede. Things were not going well in England at the time. King John was fighting with his many barons, and the disputes were basically about the division of money because, and no offense, Your Majesty, but King John had not been a particularly good king, and his king... We've got some other things to say to you in a moment. So, so there was all a division of money, and there was fighting back and forth. And John was, in many respects, an accidental king. He never should have been king. He was the fifth son of Henry II. So he was so far down the list that the king actually didn't even give him any sort of training. In matter of fact, he was supposed to be a, quote, scholar at the time. But a lot of other bad things happened to his older brothers. John didn't have anything to do with that, but they ended up having all sorts of problems, so he became king. And again, I'm sorry, but to say that he was an unliked king is really a tremendous understatement. When he died, which was only about a year after Magna Carta was originally, people say the Magna Carta was signed. It wasn't. It was sealed. Nobody signed it. He sealed it with his royal seal. But shortly after he died, it was said of him that, quote, hell itself is made fouler by the presence of John. He is the only person named John ever to be king of England. There is no John II. He was so bad, as opposed to retiring the number. This is the opposite of that, right? And in a recent New York Magazine article about the 800th anniversary, the quote was, few men have been less mourned, few documents more adored, right? So John is a pivotal figure in history, but not because of anything he really did well. So we're back at Runnymede, and John blinks in this dispute with his barons, right? Now, the key is not what John actually did, right? Because the Magna Carta is not at all, nor was it ever set up to be, a charter of liberties in the way that we'd think about it. As you heard in the Jeopardy program, literally moments after John puts his seal on the Magna Carta, he runs to the Pope and says, "Oh, look at what those bad barons made me do." And the Pope said, "You're right." And he says, "The Magna Carta is no more," immediately. Right? And it has no effect really at the beginning. And it's only reissued later in connection with bargains with barons. The one thing it wasn't about was preserving individual liberties as we think of them. But that doesn't matter, as we're going to see, right? Because it's converted into something else. Now, first, in some respects, the Magna Carta itself, if you haven't read it, and it is written in Latin, anybody want to take a guess about the language it was negotiated in? French, right? But there's no English involved here at all, because English at the time was considered a guttural language, right? So the language of writing was Latin, the language of speaking for the English king was French, and English, that was not something to be done. But the Magna Carta itself in its original reminds me a little bit of the Florida, quote, Constitution. I teach constitutional law, I love it. I don't love the use of random quotation marks. If you notice, people use them just willy-nilly. There was a sign, recently I saw it said, at IHOP, it said a 3-quote egg breakfast. Think about that for a second. If it's an egg, you don't need the quotes, and if you need the quotes, I don't want it at any price. When I got tenure, my wife got me a cookie cake from Publix that said, "Congratulations, Mike." We don't really mean it, right? Now, the Florida, quote, Constitution is a little bit like that if you read it. It's got some really powerful things in there, but what else does it have in there? It's got the protection for the pregnant pig, right? It's just chock full of these little details. That's a lot like the Magna Carta. You never hear about that. Here are some provisions from Magna Carta. Article 23, no town or person shall be forced to build bridges over rivers, except if they have an ancient obligation to do so. Right? Now, that is a stirring individual right comment, isn't it? Article 33, all fish wires shall be removed from the Thames River and throughout the whole of England. Again, what would our world be without that, right? Article 35. I actually do like Article 35, I'll tell you. There shall be standard measures of wine, ale, and corn throughout the kingdom. I don't understand the corn, right? But this gives you an idea of a lot of what is in the Magna Carta. There are things in there about squirrels and who can take squirrels from certain parts of the forest, right? That's what this was about. This was a deal among the landed, or as we would say, right, the top 1%. That's what this was. This had nothing to do with everybody else. Mitt Romney would have been very comfortable with the Magna Carta, right? And like our Constitution as well, the Magna Carta has some really offensive things in it. For example, Articles 10 and 11 basically provided that if you died and you owed money to a Jew, you didn't have to pay it back. It literally says that. You just don't have to pay it back. Article 54 says, quote, no one shall be arrested or imprisoned on the appeal of a woman for the death of any person except her husband. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it's not particularly good for women. Now, it is true that there are things that now looking back in the Magna Carta, we can see as connecting to rights in our Constitution. The most important, our friend Alex did mention to you, was Article 39, right? The idea that nobody can be seized or imprisoned or stripped of rights or possessions except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. Now, that is a connection to the right to trial by jury. It's the connection to the right to due process. But they're nothing like we would recognize them to be today, right? This was about barons and the king, right? That's what it really was about at the time. But the reason that it's important is because, and you can find other places in the Magna Carta that have the provision about excessive fines, right? All of those things. But the reason it becomes important is because people used Magna Carta for their own benefit later. So in the 1600s, so a couple 100 years, 400 years after the original Magna Carta, there was a guy named Sir Sir Coke, Edwin Coke. And he was probably the equivalent of the Charles Darrow of the time, right? A great advocate. And now there was a debate or a fight between Parliament and the king. And all of a sudden, you know, hey, this Magna Carta thing can be used to my advantage representing Parliament. That's what he was doing. So what he did was quite single-handedly turn, as a matter of advocacy, the Magna Carta into the Charter of Liberties, right? In other words, he changed the playing field, right? Hey, this is no big deal. We decided this 400 years ago, and it protects individual liberty. It's not about fish wires on the Thames River. It's about due process of law. It's literally, Sir Coke changed that narrative. It doesn't matter that it's not entirely accurate, because it became accurate because that's what Coke did in terms of how he brought this together. And much like Coke, the concept of the Magna Carta came across to the colonies when they were fighting England, right? And so you have Benjamin Franklin, who says that what the Magna Carta did was he extolled it as it extolled the common rights of Englishmen, as declared in the Magna Carta. Well, and it's just not true unless your subset of Englishmen includes only landed barons at the time. But again, this is what the mythology was that drove this along. Interestingly, there are almost no references, we think, to the Magna Carta when people were debating the Constitution at the convention. There are a bunch of references to it in the political debates to get it ratified afterwards, because it wasn't important for what was there, it was important for the concept of what it had been seen to be. And so much like the other, the advertisement that's been on TV, which is, you know, the power of cheese, right? The power of myth in the historical narrative is incredibly important, and something that lawyers put together all the time in what we do. But in the brief few moments I have left here at the end, what I want to suggest is that myth can work opposite. In other words, if one doesn't recognize that what's going on is a myth, that can be problematic. And this is where we connect to our Constitution. So bear with me for a moment. You haven't heard of it this way, but the American Revolution was something like the 2008 baseball season. Now, why? Well, because does anybody know the worst team in baseball at the end of the 2007 baseball season? The Rays, there you go. Now, as we approach the 2008 baseball season, is it possible that the Rays could have ended up in the World Series? Well, sure, they were a Major League Baseball team, right? But was it likely? Absolutely not. Of course, we all know that they ended up there. The American Revolution is just like that. Was it possible that these upstart colonists could have beat the major world power at the time, England? Yes. Was it likely? Absolutely not. But then a bizarre thing happened. We actually won. But then the guy from Georgia looks at the guy from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and says, I have absolutely nothing in common with you. Right? England is gone, and we're nothing in common. So what did they do? They decided to be what my wife tells me is something that's impossible. They tried to be a little bit pregnant. They tried to create a national government, but didn't give it any powers, right? That was the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation were an unmitigated disaster as a governing document. Unmitigated, because nothing could be done. And so the people who were running the Articles, and the Congress under the Articles, decided to have a meeting to tinker with the Articles. Now, we call that meeting the Constitutional Convention. That was not what it was meant to be at the time. It was meant to fix the Articles. Now, where was the Constitutional Convention? Philadelphia, right? That's where the Liberty Bell is. It actually should have been in Annapolis, Maryland. They tried to get people together the year before, and not enough people showed up, right? Now, why is any of that important? Well, because think about the way we think about the people who made the Constitution. The framers, the founders. We capitalize the F We actually say it in hushed tones, right? The founders, right? They were an F word. Oh, you all went to the basement there. No, what they were is they were actually failures. They were failures. The only reason that we have a constitution is because the framers failed in doing the Articles of Confederation. This is really important. There's a recent book that came out, and the title of the book is Plain Honest Men, describing what the framers were. They were just plain honest men, but they recognized that they actually had failed. So for us, when we look back, this doesn't mean that what they tried to do or what they thought wasn't important, but we ought to think about the fact that they didn't ride in there really proud on their horses. They were there because they had failed. So the Constitution is born out of failure. Something else, we think of the Constitution as being this amazingly open document. Right? Does anybody know what the first act of the Constitutional Convention was after electing George Washington as president of the convention? All the proceedings were to be in secret. Absolutely, totally secret. And in Congress, after the Constitution was ratified, directed that the proceedings would be held in secret until the late 1820s, when almost everybody who was there was dead. Now, why? It was all because of politics. It wasn't to not be democratic. It was that James Madison, the father, the intellectual father of the Constitution, realized if he failed in Philadelphia, he failed, no big deal. But if he succeeded in getting a document there, he would have to get people politically to buy it. And if everybody else was in the dark about what had gone on in Philadelphia, he was going to be so far ahead in this political battle. And it worked. But let's not forget then that not only was the Constitution born out of failure, it was born out of secrecy. And third, this idea that the Constitution, we hear it today as if it was almost this God-given thing. Look at this. It is the Constitution. Well, the Constitution, much like sausage, right? You really don't want to know how it's made because the Constitution is made from compromise. And some of those compromises are ugly, ugly. So at the time, the northern states really, really, really wanted national control of commerce. That was very important for their economy. The southern states did not want that, but they had a different goal. They needed to protect their labor supply for their economic growth. Now, their labor supply was slavery. The North, they weren't like angels, right? They didn't really care one way or the other, most of them. But this is where people saw a bargain. And so the southern states said, listen, we'll go along with national control of commerce, which gives us the Commerce Clause, right? Congress has the power to regulate commerce among the several states. In exchange, the North went along with what's called the Importation Clause. And the Importation Clause said that until 1808, Congress would not be able to regulate the importation into the United States of other persons. Didn't say slaves, but that's what it was. Between 1787 and 1808, 1 million additional people were brought into the United States in slavery. Now, I'm not critical of the Constitution because it's got a weird power. Because, you know, in 1964, Congress was able to pass the Civil Rights Act, and its authorization to do so was actually the Commerce Clause. That is a true historical irony. But it's not because the Constitution was perfect or divine by God. It's because it was a political document put together by people who had failed the first time and put together in secret. That doesn't sound like the way we learn the Constitution. But you know what? It doesn't make the Constitution less powerful. It only is dangerous if we buy into that without recognizing what it is. There's an advantage to holding the framers up. That can be good. There's an advantage to thinking of the Constitution as being about open government. There's an advantage to thinking about the Constitution as not being based on the institution of slavery. Those are all important things, but we have to recognize that they're myths. Because when I'm in public schools and do little talks about the Constitution, I always end by saying to the students, I say, so what is the Constitution? And I get all sorts of wonderful sounding answers. You can almost hear the Battle Hymn of the Republic playing when they're saying this. And then I say, no, you know, that's actually not right. Because the Constitution really fundamentally is, now by the way, I teach the Constitution, okay? I love it. I actually have it in my pocket. There you go. Absolutely true. But what is the Constitution? Well, the Constitution is this great-looking document on cool parchment with great writing, written by now dead old white guys several hundred years ago. It doesn't mean absolutely anything to us unless we make it make something to us. Every generation has to embrace the document as its own. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a meaning. This is not the living Constitution. I'm not talking about constitutional interpretation. I'm talking about simply whatever the document means. If one does not make it your own, why in the world would we possibly care what these people who were failures 200 and something years ago said? It's only because, much like the Magna Carta, we make it our own. And that becomes the reality that binds us together as we move forward. So interestingly enough, as I thought about the talk and the importance of the Magna Carta, it struck me that the importance wasn't what actually happened on that day in Runnymede 800 years ago. It's what we think about what happened on that day 800 years ago, which led to the Constitution and which leads us today to think about our constitutional rights and liberties. So I really appreciate the invitation to come down, and thank you very much.
You could stay up for just a minute. If I could have two of our Law Day committees, Janelle Esposito and Sean Flynn.
I thought I had done something wrong.
Dean Allen, thanks so much for coming today and not only connecting the history for us, but giving us something to think about, I think, as lawyers and lawmakers in our community, about how we view the Constitution and political issues of today. So thank you so much. We have a few gifts for you, one of which was penned by our very own Judge Smith, which is a very good read of the history in this legal community.
Oh my goodness, fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you.
On behalf of the Manatee County Bar Association, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Allen. I think when we hear the words constitutional law professor, many of us have bad memories of a required law school course, and now we all wish that you had been our professor, so thank you. So we'll wrap up our meeting today. The next meeting will be the annual meeting on June 24th. We will elect new officers. We will present the Community Service Awards. And so I hope you can all make this important meeting. I want to thank again BMO Harris Bank and Manatee Educational Television and the members of the Law Day Planning Committee. You all made it a great day, and I hope it has a lot of meaning for all of us. And thank you all for attending. The meeting is adjourned.